The soldier stumbled through the dense jungle, his boots sinking into the soft earth with every step. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of unfamiliar vegetation, a stark contrast to the arid landscapes he'd trained on back home. His rifle felt heavier with each passing moment, though whether from exhaustion or the oppressive gravity of this alien world, he couldn't tell. The mission had been straightforward in briefing: locate and neutralize any potential threats near the newly established human outpost. But nothing about this planet had proven straightforward. He paused, wiping sweat from his brow as his tactical display flickered with static. The advanced technology that had promised clarity now betrayed him, leaving him navigating blind through this alien wilderness. That's when he saw her. An impossible vision emerging from the mist. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her presence commanding yet gentle, like the first light of dawn breaking through darkness. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, catching what little sunlight penetrated the dense canopy above, shifting between shades of opalescent blue and silver. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, defying gravity in delicate tendrils that seemed to dance with their own consciousness. Eyes that could eclipse galaxies regarded him with an intensity that froze his blood, yet filled him with an inexplicable warmth. She wore flowing garments that appeared woven from the very essence of the stars themselves, materializing and dematerializing in patterns that defied human understanding. Every movement she made created ripples in the air around her, as if reality itself bent to accommodate her presence. The soldier's training screamed at him to raise his weapon, to assess the threat, but his body refused to comply. Instead, he found himself rooted to the spot, caught in the gravitational pull of her gaze. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnificent, terrifying in her perfection. Each breath he took seemed to draw him deeper into her orbit, until the jungle around them faded into irrelevance. In that moment, surrounded by the alien wilderness, facing this impossible being, he understood for the first time what it meant to stand in the presence of something truly extraordinary. "I have deceived you," her voice resonated through his mind more than his ears, bypassing language barriers with an intimacy that made his chest tighten. "Please understand, I had no choice." The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken consequences. The soldier's hand instinctively tightened around his weapon, but his finger didn't move toward the trigger. Something in her eyes, ancient, pained, and impossibly sincere, held him frozen in place. "You've been here before," she continued, taking a step closer. "Your kind has visited my world many times, though your history books would call them myths and legends. We've watched you evolve, fought beside you in shadows, and mourned your losses from afar." Her iridescent form shimmered with each word, as if the truth itself caused her physical pain. "When we detected your recent arrival, protocols demanded I intervene. My people's survival depends on maintaining our isolation." The soldier's tactical display buzzed with renewed life, suddenly flooded with data he hadn't accessed before. Ancient symbols and mathematical equations scrolled across his visor, translating faster than his mind could process. He realized with growing horror that everything he'd experienced since landing, the strange weather patterns, the equipment malfunctions, even the seemingly random wildlife encounters, had been carefully orchestrated. This wasn't just deception, it was a masterful manipulation of reality itself. "But why?" he managed to choke out, his voice raw against the oppressive stillness of the jungle. "Why go through such elaborate measures?" The princess closed the distance between them, her presence both comforting and overwhelming. "Because revealing ourselves fully would mean war," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Not with your species alone, but with others who watch from the stars. Your arrival has already triggered ancient agreements, awakened sleeping forces. My deception was meant to protect not just my people, but yours as well." She reached out, her hand hovering inches from his face, close enough for him to feel the subtle vibrations of her power. "I've altered memories, redirected entire platoons, fabricated evidence to maintain the illusion of isolation. But with you." Her voice broke, and for the first time, he saw uncertainty in those cosmic eyes. "You were different. Your persistence, your refusal to accept the false trails, it forced my hand. I couldn't keep manipulating you without risking permanent damage to your mind." The jungle seemed to hold its breath as she withdrew slightly, her form flickering like a hologram losing power. "And now, despite everything, I find myself unable to continue the deception. Perhaps that is my greatest failure. Or perhaps it is my only hope. The weight of her confession settled over him, heavier than his armor, more complex than any military strategy he'd ever faced. In that moment, standing before this alien princess who had played God with his reality, he understood that the battlefield they now occupied was far more dangerous than any physical confrontation. Their eyes locked in a moment that stretched beyond time, where centuries of galactic politics and personal vulnerability collided. The soldier's mind raced through countless scenarios, each one more impossible than the last. His tactical training screamed at him to maintain distance, to establish control, but something deeper, something primal and human, responded to her raw honesty. The princess stood before him, her perfect form vibrating with barely contained energy, as if holding herself together required monumental effort. "Every time I touched your mind," she confessed, her voice a symphony of regret and resolve, "I felt pieces of myself unraveling. Your species' capacity for forgiveness, your ability to see beauty even in destruction. It's unlike anything my people have encountered." She raised her hand again, this time letting it rest lightly against his armored chest. Through the metal, he felt warmth spread through him, not just physically but emotionally, as if she were sharing fragments of her soul. The soldier's breathing quickened, not from fear but from the overwhelming sensation of being truly seen. Memories he thought lost flashed before his eyes. Moments of doubt during basic training, the faces of comrades who never returned, the silent prayers he offered to stars he didn't believe in. All these private vulnerabilities unfolded before her like pages of a book, laid bare without his consent yet somehow without violation. "You humans carry your brokenness so openly," she continued, her touch sending waves of understanding through him. "It's both your greatest strength and your most dangerous flaw. My people have spent millennia perfecting our defenses, building walls around our hearts and minds. But you—" Her voice cracked, and a single tear traced down her cheek, refracting light into 1,000 colors. "You walk into battle carrying your wounds like banners, wearing your scars as badges of honor. It's beautiful. And terrifying." The air between them thickened, charged with emotions neither could fully articulate. The soldier realized with startling clarity that this wasn't just about political maneuvering or species survival anymore. Something fundamental had shifted in both of them, creating a connection that transcended their respective roles. As her fingers curled slightly against his armor, he felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him. Not just for his mission, but for the delicate thread of trust forming between two beings from worlds apart. The jungle around them seemed to pulse with new awareness, as if the planet itself recognized the significance of this moment. Strange flowers bloomed instantaneously, their petals unfolding like miniature galaxies, while bioluminescent insects traced intricate patterns in the air. The soldier noticed how these creatures reacted to the princess's presence. Not with fear, but with a kind of reverent harmony, as if she conducted an invisible orchestra of life. "This world responds to your emotions," he observed, his voice steadier now, carrying a note of wonder rather than accusation. She nodded, her shimmering form casting dancing lights across the forest floor. "My people are bound to this planet in ways your science cannot yet comprehend. Our thoughts shape its reality, just as its essence flows through our veins." She stepped back slightly, and the immediate area transformed. Trees rearranged themselves, creating a natural amphitheater of living wood and vines. As she moved, the soldier caught glimpses of her true form beneath the humanoid disguise. Her body occasionally flickered, revealing structures that defied physics, geometric patterns that pulsed with inner light, limbs that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Yet despite these revelations of her alien nature, she remained profoundly familiar, as if some deep part of his consciousness recognized her as kin. "They call me princess, because it's the closest translation your language can provide," she explained, gesturing to the transformed space around them. "But my title is better understood as harmonizer, one who maintains balance between species, dimensions, and realities." The ground beneath their feet rippled like liquid crystal, displaying scenes from her civilization. Towering spires that existed partially in other dimensions, citizens whose forms shifted between pure energy and physical manifestation, and vast libraries where knowledge was stored not in books but in living organisms. He reached out instinctively as the visions threatened to overwhelm him, and she caught his hand in hers. Their connection sparked visibly now, arcs of multicolored energy dancing between their touching palms. Through this contact, he experienced flashes of her culture, ceremonies where individuals merged temporarily with aspects of their planet's consciousness, rituals where entire communities synchronized their thoughts to create shared realities, and tragic memories of times when such unity had failed, leading to catastrophic consequences. The scale of what he was witnessing hit him like a physical force. This wasn't just another intelligent species. They were custodians of concepts humanity hadn't even begun to grasp. The weight of their responsibility pressed against his chest, making each breath a conscious effort. Yet amidst this overwhelming revelation, he found himself focusing on the simple fact that she still held his hand, her grip firm but gentle, bridging the gap between their vastly different existences. "We've tried to warn your kind before," she admitted, her voice carrying the weight of countless failures. "Subtle nudges in your development, carefully planted seeds of understanding that might have blossomed into peaceful coexistence. But each time, fear overwhelmed reason. Your species' history is written in cycles of discovery and destruction. The burning of ancient libraries, the persecution of those who spoke of visitors from the stars, the systematic suppression of evidence that didn't fit your comfortable narratives." She released his hand to gesture at the surrounding jungle, which responded by displaying ghostly images of past encounters. Humans in primitive armor cowering before beings of light, medieval scholars recording celestial visitations only to have their works burned as heresy, modern scientists silenced or discredited when they dared suggest the universe might be more complex than their instruments could measure. Each scene carried the unmistakable signature of her people's influence, attempts to guide humanity's evolution that had ended in tragedy. "The agreement we violated by contacting you directly dates back thousands of your years," she continued, her form flickering with distress. "Other civilizations watch us, waiting for any sign of weakness. They believe your species represents either a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited. Our intervention must remain hidden, our protection of Earth subtle and deniable." The air grew heavier as she spoke, the jungle's response becoming increasingly agitated, plants wilting and regrowing in rapid succession, animals fleeing in panic. "But there's more," she added, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than her previous declarations. "Your recent technological advancements have triggered ancient protocols among the galaxy's elder races. They're moving now, positioning themselves for something. My people have foreseen this moment for generations, but our predictions have always ended in extinction-level events." She took a shuddering breath, her composure cracking under the weight of eons of responsibility. The soldier felt the ground shift beneath his feet, not from physical movement but from the sheer magnitude of what she was revealing. Through their still active connection, he sensed the vast network of treaties and alliances that bound her people. Agreements spanning millions of years, involving species that viewed time differently than either humans or her kind. Some of these entities measured existence in geological eras, others in quantum fluctuations. To them, humanity's brief tenure on Earth was less than a blink of an eye. "Our deception of you was necessary," she concluded, her voice trembling with conflicting emotions. "But it's become clear that continuing it would be equally disastrous. Your species stands at a crossroads, unaware of the cosmic forces gathering around you. And my people." She hesitated, closing her eyes as if steeling herself for the final revelation. "We may have miscalculated. The very act of protecting you might have accelerated the timeline we sought to prevent." The jungle fell silent, as if holding its breath along with them. Between them lay not just the weight of two species' futures, but the precarious balance of an entire galaxy's destiny. The soldier realized with chilling clarity that their encounter represented far more than a simple breach of protocol. It was potentially the first move in a game whose rules had been written long before humanity's ancestors first walked upright. In the silence that followed her revelations, the soldier found himself grappling with an unprecedented paradox. Every fiber of his military training demanded action, to report, to secure, to eliminate the perceived threat. Yet the woman before him, this alien princess burdened with the weight of galaxies, had exposed vulnerabilities that transcended mere physical danger. The tactical display in his visor continued to flood with data, now translating ancient warnings and prophecies from dozens of star systems, each more dire than the last. His heart pounded against his ribcage, not from fear of the unknown, but from the crushing realization that his role in this cosmic drama extended far beyond his original mission parameters. The princess's earlier touch had left an indelible mark on his consciousness, allowing him to perceive the delicate web of interstellar politics that had kept Earth isolated for millennia. Through this newfound awareness, He understood that his presence here represented more than a chance encounter. It was potentially the fulcrum upon which galactic scales would tip. The jungle around them began to respond to their combined emotional turmoil. Plants mutated and evolved in real time, creating impossible hybrids that defied biological logic. Streams changed course, flowing uphill against gravity's pull, while the very atmosphere seemed to crystallize into visible patterns of light and shadow. These weren't random environmental changes. They were manifestations of the princess's internal conflict, her struggle to maintain the careful balance between truth and necessity. "You must understand," she said finally, her voice carrying the weight of countless civilizations. "Every decision we make creates ripples across dimensions we barely comprehend. Your species' innocence is both your greatest strength and your most dangerous liability. The knowledge I've shared with you, it could save billions, or it could trigger exactly the catastrophe we've worked for eons to prevent." She reached out again, this time not to touch but to create a sphere of energy between them, within which danced images of possible futures. Humanity thriving among the stars, Earth consumed by fire, and countless variations in between. The soldier's mind rebelled against the scope of responsibility being placed upon his shoulders. He was just a soldier, trained to follow orders and protect his people. Yet here he stood, facing choices that affected not just his planet or his species, but potentially the entire fabric of known reality. The princess's earlier confession about her people's role as harmonizers took on new meaning. They weren't just protectors of their own world, but custodians of universal equilibrium. Through their maintained connection, he felt the collective consciousness of her people reaching out, assessing, calculating. Each moment they spent together increased the risk of detection by the ancient forces she'd warned about. The air vibrated with the tension of competing imperatives, to preserve Earth's ignorance or to prepare humanity for the storm gathering beyond their solar system. The princess's shimmering form began to fade in and out of visibility, as if her very existence depended on resolving this impossible dilemma. Time seemed to lose all meaning as they stood there, suspended between duty and destiny. The soldier realized that whatever decision emerged from this encounter would redefine not just his life, but potentially the trajectory of entire civilizations. The tactical data flooding his systems began to coalesce into patterns he couldn't fully comprehend, suggesting that their meeting had been inevitable, preordained by forces beyond either of their understandings. Yet within this cosmic inevitability lay the terrifying freedom of choice, a choice that could alter everything they knew about existence itself. The soldier's tactical display suddenly erupted with new data streams, but these weren't the usual sensor readings or threat assessments. Instead, they revealed something far more unsettling. Fragments of his own memories, altered and rewritten by the princess's influence. He saw himself leading his squad into ambushes that never happened, reporting findings from locations he'd never visited, even recalling conversations with superiors that had never taken place. Each fabricated memory unraveled before his eyes, replaced by glimpses of reality, the truth buried beneath layers of her careful manipulation. But among these revelations, something else emerged, memories that didn't belong to him at all. He saw flashes of her life, a young alien girl learning to control her powers in a crystalline academy, a solemn ceremony where she was crowned harmonizer, and a moment of unbearable grief when she had to erase an entire human colony's awareness of her people to save them from destruction. These weren't just projections. They were hers, spilling into him unintentionally through their connection. "You're not just showing me what you've done," he said, his voice trembling. "You're giving me pieces of yourself." The realization hit him like a shockwave. She wasn't merely confessing her deception, she was entrusting him with her soul. And as the weight of those shared experiences settled over him, he felt a surge of anger, not for the lies, but for the burden she carried alone. Before she could respond, the jungle around them convulsed violently. The air crackled with energy, and the ground split open, revealing veins of glowing crystal pulsing beneath the surface. From these fissures rose figures, not humanoid, but something older, primal. Their forms shifted constantly, as if they existed halfway between matter and thought. They radiated an aura of ancient malice, their presence making the soldier's skin crawl despite his armor. "They found us," the princess whispered, her voice laced with dread. Her shimmering form flickered erratically, and for the first time, he saw fear in her cosmic eyes. "The Watchers, they enforce the agreements. They know I've broken protocol." The soldier instinctively raised his weapon, though he doubted bullets would do anything against beings that seemed to warp reality itself. But the princess grabbed his arm, forcing him to lower it. No weapons will stop them. They don't seek violence, they seek balance. And right now, our connection is disrupting that balance. Her words barely registered as the Watchers advanced, their movements fluid yet disjointed, like liquid shadows given form. One of them extended a tendril-like appendage toward the soldier, and he felt his mind invaded, not painfully, but with a cold precision that stripped away layers of his consciousness. Memories, emotions, even fragments of his identity were laid bare before them. "They're assessing you," the princess said urgently. "They'll decide whether your existence threatens the equilibrium. If they deem you too dangerous." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. In that moment, the soldier understood the true depth of her sacrifice. By exposing herself to him, and now to the Watchers, she had put everything on the line. Her people, her planet, perhaps even the fragile peace between countless civilizations. All of it hung in the balance because of her choice to trust him. And yet, even as the Watchers probed his mind, he couldn't bring himself to regret meeting her. Suddenly, one of the Watchers emitted a sound, a resonant hum that vibrated through the very fabric of reality. The jungle froze, every leaf and insect suspended mid-motion. Time itself seemed to stutter. Then, without warning, the soldier was yanked out of his body, thrust into a realm beyond comprehension. He found himself standing in a vast expanse of shifting light and shadow, surrounded by countless versions of himself. Some wore his face but were clad in different uniforms. Others appeared as mere outlines or echoes of his presence. Each version represented a possible outcome of this encounter. Some showed him returning to Earth as a hero, others depicted him as a traitor, and still others revealed futures where humanity perished under the judgment of the Watchers. At the center of this kaleidoscope of possibilities stood the princess, her form radiant yet fractured, as if she too existed across multiple timelines. She reached out to him, and as their hands touched, the myriad versions of himself began to converge, merging into a single, coherent path. It was then that he realized the truth. The Watchers weren't here to judge him, they were here to test them. Together, they were being evaluated as a pair, two individuals bound by choices that transcended species and dimensions. The vision ended abruptly, snapping him back to the jungle. The Watchers retracted their probing tendrils, retreating into the glowing fissures below. As quickly as they had appeared, they vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. The princess collapsed to her knees, her shimmering form dimmer than before, as if the encounter had drained her essence. What did they see?" the prisoner demanded, helping her to her feet. His voice shook with equal parts awe and terror. "They saw potential," she replied weakly. "Not just in me, but in us. In what we might become together." Her gaze locked onto his, filled with both hope and sorrow. "But they also saw risk. Great risk. Whatever happens next depends entirely on the choices we make, from this moment forward." As she spoke, the jungle began to transform once more. The plants grew darker, their bioluminescence fading, while the atmosphere thickened with an almost tangible sense of foreboding. Something had changed, not just in the environment, but in the very fabric of reality. The soldier felt it deep within his bones. The universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see which path they would choose. And somewhere, in the depths of space, ancient forces stirred, awakened by the ripple effect of their meeting. Forces that neither the princess nor the soldier fully understood, but that would soon demand answers neither of them was prepared to give. The soldier and the princess stood together in the dimming jungle, their connection now an undeniable bond forged through shared trials and revelations. The air around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the universe itself awaited their next move. Yet neither of them spoke. Words felt insufficient in the face of what lay ahead. Instead, they simply held each other's gaze, drawing strength from the fragile trust that had somehow survived betrayal, fear, and cosmic judgment. "I can feel it," the princess whispered finally, her voice trembling but resolute. "The Watchers have left us a window, a chance to rewrite the rules before others come to enforce them." She placed a hand over her heart, where faint traces of his memories still lingered within her. "But this isn't just about my people anymore. It's about yours too. Humanity stands on the brink of discovery, unaware of the forces gathering beyond your stars. If we don't act now, they'll descend upon you like wolves on unsuspecting prey. Her words ignited a spark of determination in the soldier. For so long, he had been a pawn in someone else's game, first hers, then the Watcher's. But now, for the first time, he saw an opportunity to take control of his destiny. Not just his own, but that of two species bound together by fate and choice. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. He knew there would be no going back after this moment. Whatever decision they made would irrevocably alter the course of history, for better or worse. She hesitated, her shimmering form flickering as though even she struggled to find the right path. Then, with a deep breath, she extended her hand toward him once more. This time, when their fingers touched, the energy between them surged violently, illuminating the jungle in cascading waves of light. Through their connection, he saw not only her thoughts but also glimpses of a plan, one so audacious it bordered on madness. "We must become something new," she said, her voice echoing with newfound clarity. "Neither fully human nor fully alien, but something greater. A bridge between our worlds, capable of navigating both without being consumed by either." Her eyes burned with intensity as she continued. "By merging our essences, not just physically, but spiritually, we can create a new kind of existence. One that transcends the limitations imposed by the old agreements. One that might give humanity a fighting chance against what's coming." The soldier recoiled instinctively, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she proposed. To merge with her, to become something neither fully himself nor entirely other, was a sacrifice far greater than anything he'd ever imagined. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, he realized that she was offering him not just a burden, but a gift, the chance to protect everything he loved while standing beside someone who understood the weight of responsibility all too well. Before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled again. This time, however, it wasn't the Watchers returning, it was something far worse. From the horizon came a sound unlike anything he'd ever heard, a low, resonant hum that vibrated through every cell in his body. The sky darkened as massive shapes began to materialize above the jungle, blotting out the sun. Ships of impossible design descended, their surfaces shifting and flowing like liquid metal. These were the elder races, the ones she had warned him about. They had come to claim Earth, whether humanity was ready or not. "There's no more time," she said urgently, her voice cutting through the rising chaos. "If we don't act now, they'll destroy everything we've built. Everything we are." With those words, she stepped closer, closing the distance between them completely. Her hands cupped his face, and he felt her essence flooding into him, not forcibly, but with a tenderness that took his breath away. Memories, emotions, and knowledge poured into his mind, intertwining with his own until he could no longer tell where he ended and she began. It was painful, beautiful, and utterly transformative. As the first of the elder ships opened fire, obliterating sections of the jungle in bursts of searing light, the soldier felt himself changing. His body shimmered with the same iridescent glow as hers, his consciousness expanding to encompass perspectives he couldn't have dreamed of moments before. Together, they rose into the air, their forms merging into a single, radiant being that defied classification. From the perspective of the elder races, it must have seemed like an act of defiance, a challenge issued by two insignificant beings daring to stand against the might of the cosmos. But to the soldier and the princess, it was something far simpler, an affirmation of hope. By becoming one, they had created something the universe had never seen before, a hybrid capable of bridging divides thought unbridgeable. The battle that followed was brief but cataclysmic. With their combined powers, they unleashed energies that shattered the elder ship's weapons, forcing them to retreat. The jungle below was reduced to ash, but the planet itself remained intact, a testament to the strength of their unity. When the dust settled, the soldier-princess hybrid floated above the ruins, gazing down at the scarred landscape. Humanity would awaken soon to the realization that they were not alone in the universe. And when they did, they would find themselves guided, not by conquerors or saviors, but by something in between. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the devastated jungle, the hybrid turned its gaze skyward. There were still countless challenges ahead, battles to fight, and truths to reveal. But for the first time in millennia, the future felt uncertain, and that uncertainty was the greatest gift of all. And so, the story of the soldier and the alien princess ended not with triumph or tragedy, but with transformation. Together, they had forged a new path, one that promised neither salvation nor destruction, but the endless possibility of growth. In a universe defined by ancient rules and rigid hierarchies, they had dared to rewrite the script, and in doing so, given humanity a fighting chance to shape its own destiny among the stars.